This is AM Agenda. Thanks for your company. With me now, Labor MP Graham Perrett and Liberal MP Steve Ciobo. Gentlemen, good morning. Graham.
Morning.
Well, where do we start? The bad news continues. It looks like Labor's vote is locked in at that dire number around 31%, and the Prime Minister's personal standing's also fallen a bit.
Yeah, look, there's two polls that I particularly care about. I do have a look at these other polls, but the two polls that I particularly worry about as a marginal MP is one from the company that says head down, work hard. The other one is on the people of Moreton on election day. Now, these polls, you say locked in. The reality is we do have a lot of work to do. The Prime Minister's in more trouble than Indiana Jones. I see that, but we've got some good policies. We've got a good chance to get out between now and September 14 to retail the good policies that we have.
What's the mood like, though, when you see these sorts of numbers?
I was out in one of the tougher parts of my electorate on Saturday, and the mood out there was actually quite good, quite buoyant. People were making a point of coming up to me saying, look, you know, I was in a strong Liberal part of my electorate, making a point of coming up to say, look, I like what you're doing. I've got a lot of problems with Tony Abbott, but yeah, you need to work a bit harder, and that's the message I've been getting consistently in my electorate. Now I'm a very marginal seat, unlike Steve. You know, I've been campaigning for 10 years in my electorate, so I've never been particularly worried about what the polls and what they're saying.
Julia Gillard has said today to the Fairfax press that she won't flinch. She hasn't flinched before. She's not going to flinch now. Asked about the prospect of being tapped on the shoulder, she said she's not going to happen. And asked about the politics, modern politics, she said it's harder than it used to be. You just got to be a pretty hard bastard to get it done. Was her message. So some defiant in nature and a bit of language as well.
Well, I'm not a big fan of such language, but I do know this about the Prime Minister, that she is incredibly tough. She's committed. You look at the things that this Parliament has got through. The NDIS, incredible. Last week, you know, obviously there was press releases from every Liberal member talking about how wonderful it was. Not, you know, it's hard to get these messages out there in the current climate. You know, people were talking to me about some leadership brouhaha cultivated with information cultivated by the Liberal Party on Thursday afternoon last week.
Conspiracy theorist, Graham.
Well, no, I'm just
you've got all
reporting
these
the facts,
things that apparently everything's the Liberals' fault. This is part of the problem.
No, I have said we need to work hard and retail our good policies. That's what we need to do. I don't resolve from that. I don't retreat from that. And I certainly relish the idea of having a fight right up until September the 14th. That's what the Labor Party is about. We're the party of giving opportunity to all, not just protecting privilege and power for some.
As I put to Christopher Pyne, Steve Ciobo, things are difficult for Julia Gillard, but she does remain defiant and vows to continue to fight. I think many other political figures would have capitulated by now.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think part of the problem with Kieran is, you know, I've heard many people say is, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I mean, the problem that we've got here with the Labor Party is that they're doing exactly that. They just keep doing the same thing, and we heard it this morning from Graham. Graham saying, look, we've got great policies, the problem is we're not selling our message. That's not the problem. The problem is that Labor's policies are failing. The problem is that Julia Gillard as a leader is failing. And the electorate is trying to send a message. And all we hear from Labor politicians is, look, you're wrong. Our problem is that we're not selling our message strongly enough to you. I mean, the Labor Party needs to wake up to itself and needs to hear what the electorate is saying. And they're saying they're unhappy with the direction of the Labor Party. Take, for example, the NDIS, to which Graham was just referring, Kieran. I mean, this is a big policy announcement. But you see, the problem with Labor is they think people are stupid, and they're not. Because Labor says, this is a great headline policy, we need to sell it. But what the Australian people are saying is, where's the money? We don't believe you, because we know that Labor has got more debt and deficit off the back of this policy.
As I spoke to John Sturton before, Kevin Rudd remains much more popular than Julia Gillard in terms of the Neilsen Poll, the preferred Labor leader. He was out on St Patrick's Day yesterday making a bit of a gag about the leadership. We'll play it for you.
Now, there's been a lot of speculation about politics of late. It's time to put a stop to it. It's time to announce at this celebration of St Patrick's Day 2013, on these Ides of March 2013, that I will challenge any of the Liberal politicians here present tonight to demonstrate any of the Liberal politicians here this evening to demonstrate that they have any more Irish heritage than I have.
So Kevin Rudd making light of the Labor leadership tensions. How do you think that will go down with your colleagues?
Well, the reality is, you know, it's sort of like the how long you've been beating your wife question, this leadership question. The reality is Kevin Rudd had a tilt at the leadership last year. He's in a great position to deliver great support for the Labor Party, as he does. He's my next door neighbour. He works hard in my electorate. He works hard in his electorate, and he works hard for the Labor brand all around Australia. So, you know, if we're dancing to the shadows that the media suggests that are coming from Liberal Party sources, you know, the day I start taking Liberal Party advice about how to run a campaign is the day I pack up my tent and go home.
But Mr. Rudd making light of it, do you think that helps? Or can we just give it a brush off because it was St Patrick's Day?
It's St Patrick's Day. It was, you know, a good night at the Irish Club. I think it was delivered in fine humour, and it would be treated as such by most sensible Australians.
Well, it's certainly got a good reaction in the room.
Well, you know, another comedy show is, of course, Hogan's Heroes and Captain Clink with I Know Nothing. And I mean, we've got the Labor Party here running around saying when there's, you know, media speculation, the community's talking about it. You just saw Kevin Rudd get, you know, rapturous applause when he said he was going to challenge. And then we've got Graham saying, look, Kevin's a great bloke. And he said, I don't like Julia, I don't like the language she uses, but I'm going to stick with her. And then they're claiming, oh, we don't understand what all this concern is about leadership. I mean, the problem here, Kieran, is that Labor is just not listening. And this is the fundamental point. This is not a Liberal conspiracy. And I think it's sad that we've got major political leaders making jokes about Australia's national leadership. While the Labor Party's doing this, why aren't they concentrating on the fact that Australians are saying we have cost of living pressures? Labor's not focused on what the real concerns of everyday Australians are.
Let's talk about the media reforms. Only a couple of minutes left. Graham, are you content with the amount of consultation that's been undertaken on this, beyond the broader debate about press freedom and so on?
Look, I totally respect the Fourth Estate and the great work that they do as, you know, making up a healthy democracy. But I do want this legislation to go through. Now, in terms of the reality is we've only got a few parliamentary weeks up until September the 14th. You know, we've got budget, we've got a bit of time. So obviously this is something I would like bedded down and through. Now, I've never got into the intricacies of dealing with independents and the Greens. That's something for people outside my pay scale. Obviously, there is I have been involved.
What about setting the deadline of next week and saying,
well,
meet it or else?
I've done a lot of enterprise bargaining and negotiations over my time as a lawyer and working for a union, and I do know that there's sometimes push through hard can work, can be effective, but normally you do that under slightly different circumstances. Now, the reality is this is a light touch. This really is a light touch, as you know. It's just making sure the current self-regulation works effectively. So I think the independents and the Greens would have a close look at it and see that this is a sensible compromise to ensure that we've still got a free press, a liberal press that is able to do its job effectively and continue to do so.
Steve Ciobo, I guess you're not a big fan?
No, well, I mean, there's no compromise here, despite what the Labor Party says. I mean, Labor has turned around and said, do it our way or hit the highway. It's that straightforward. I mean, this is just Labor attempting to mask something for what it actually is, which is an attempt to govern the media and the media content.
And those parliamentary committees will be on the Business Channel right throughout the day, as I said, into these controversial media laws. Graham Perrett, Steve Ciobo, gents, thanks a lot for that. We're out of time frame agenda. Thank you very much for your company this Monday morning at the start of a busy parliamentary week. Make sure you stay with us on Sky News for all the latest. I'm Kieran Gilbert. See you soon.